everyone. Welcome back to MHVR Bites. I'm Dr. Adam Baldowski. I'm one of your hosts today.
And I'm Dr. Jessica Stone, the other host, and we are joined today by Marie, and I'm so excited. We've crossed paths in so many different ways over the years and worked together in this realm of doing things in VR clinically. And so as I was chatting with you about before we even started, I think the great power of having you on here today is to really give people a perspective from a clinician's point of view, actually in practice, boots on the ground, doing this work. And, Adam and I can talk about it all day long, but to have someone else come in with their perspective, I think is just such valuable information. So thank you for coming on.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
I'm hoping you can tell people a little bit about who you are and what you do.
Yeah, so I'm Marie Bonner Horon. I'm a licensed professional counselor and a registered play therapist supervisor. I am born and raised in the Midwest, and I'm here in the Midwest. I'm close to St. Louis, Missouri. I have a private practice, and then I'm also a co-owner of a training facility out here to help share play therapy trainings and other professional development.
That's fantastic. And we will put all that information in the post when we link, you can link all of that up so people can find you, because I have a feeling people are going to be excited about what you're doing and want to hear more.
Yeah.
So what's the history? How did you get to this point where you're sitting on a podcast and talking about doing this?
Oh my gosh, I cannot tell you how excited I am for this. It's been so cool to watch you all, to be a part of watch you all spread the word and to be a part of the training. So really when I started, when I left grad school, I was just going to work with high schoolers. High schoolers were always near and dear to my heart because it was a school counselor that really changed the trajectory of my life. And I wanted to give that back. And as I started working with high schoolers and I started to get a little bit younger, I've always known how play is beneficial for anybody, really, but for these kids, it helps just, everything we know, right? Like it lowers those defenses. It's a form of communication and a connection to them. And once COVID hit, and I was coming off of maternity leave, and I'm reading all the articles out there about how people are starting to use telebehavioral health and play therapy and how to do it appropriately and ethically. I had to get on the bandwagon and start learning, right, how to be an effective play therapist on the computer. And I started just like I did when I was working in the schools, is I brought games back in, and knowing that I can play Uno online, I can play all these other online games. Well, then the kids started to show me more tools. Minecraft was a huge one. And I started learning how to play. I had to do my homework and start playing on my own and doing the reading and the research to make sure I'm doing it ethically. Right. So that's what got me started. And as soon as I started incorporating more games like Minecraft and Fortnite into my repertoire, I started connecting with more and more kids. And it was just another aha moment of, this really works. This really is another way I can connect with these kids and give back the way I felt I was given to.
Mm-hmm. And then it extended to virtual reality at some point. I mean, that for some play therapists in particular, but also just anybody, like that can feel like a huge leap. It doesn't to me, and I'm guessing not to Adam either, but because once you know, but
Mm-hmm.
when it's just this thing, you put this thing on your head and like, what? Like when it's just this thing out there, it can be a big leap.
Right. And so, like you said, I had the digital stuff down. I read, all the books I could by you, all the research. And then it naturally led to this path of virtual reality. And and yet another way to connect on such a cool level with individuals from all walks of life. So I took the immersive training from that you offer, and I mean, it just opened my world up to so many cool aspects. I slowly brought it into the play and wanting to work with a lot, bringing in for adults too, that focusing on like the relaxation and the meditation realms. It's so immersive, and helping the parents start to regulate themselves through the VR technology has been so cool.
What's been the biggest challenge for you as a clinician, not just exploring VR, but I guess getting clients, their parents on board? Like,
Oh my gosh, it's for me, it's been that comfortability, right? Like me playing with it, me being comfortable with it, so I can then explain it and explain it in a way that's going to help ease them into it. And I know there's always that if they've never put it on, right? You lose touch. You're in a blacked out space, and now you're so vulnerable. And so having a parent come in and really getting them to trust me, I have to be comfortable with the technology. And it took me a while to bring the VR into my playroom, because how am I going to explain it? And then the other logistics of consent, getting parents and guardians to consent to this, even though like if it gets broken, what happens? So I know I've spent a lot of time doing the research on how do I write this consent to make sure everybody's covered.
I have found that I think hands down the most powerful way to have parents in particular understand the power of immersive technology. Of course, the verbal and written informed consent, like of course, all of those things. But like the most powerful thing that gets them to go, oh, I get it, is to actually put the headset on the parents.
Mm-hmm.
Have you had that experience?
Oh my gosh, yes. Yes. I was working with a family, and the kiddo was doing, in my world, I think they were doing just fine. It was the mom who was just overly stressed with just life and taking care of a neurodiverse child, and just working with mom of, can you find time to take time for yourself, self-care. And she just she couldn't. So we scheduled, once the kiddo went back to school, I had mom come in and we walked through it. And I was like, I just need you to try this experience with me. And we had talked, beforehand of things that she liked. She liked the beach. That was just something she wished she could go on vacation and do the beach. And I was like, all right, let's try that. So getting her set up in the VR helmet and going to a beach and having the sounds and having a small tray of sand for her just to put her fingers in. And you could just see her body relax. And when she was done, she took that sigh and she goes, I don't know when the last time I felt this good. And like, that was just a huge moment for me.
Mm-hmm. And you're speaking to a lot of things in there, but one of the things that I know is near and dear for me is the power of that multisensory experience. And so in what you said, I mean, you packed a lot in there. So for people who aren't familiar, I just want to unpack it a little bit, because you acknowledged the state she is generally in life at this moment, that hectic, and what kind of experience might be best for her to go into. And then you asked some of her preferences. So then you're honing it in. Okay, beach, VR, beach. Okay. And then you have her in the helmet, in the headset, and then you are having her visually looking at the beach. You have her hearing the sounds that go along with that experience. You have a sand tray available for her to put her hands in if she chooses to, so that she can feel the sand, which essentially makes us think of the beach often. And then you're processing it with her afterwards of what that whole experience was like for her, and maybe even the importance of taking 5
Mhm.
taking a few minutes, and how that can really reset and regenerate.
Yeah.
It's so powerful.
Well, not,
Multisensory, multiple components that you brought into that for her.
and also, I know you mentioned this, Jessica, but that importance of knowing not only Mary, you feeling comfortable with it, but also knowing enough about it to meet the client, meet the parent where they're at, and not just like, you could have shown her maybe the app that their kid is using, but you catered more to, okay, well, what would help them in this moment? And so you heard the word beach and went with it, right?
Mhm.
So you made it the experience, you catered the experience to her so she could understand what it was like. I mean, I can just imagine how that would be different if you put her in the game, maybe their kid was playing, you might not
She's
be
in
the
there
same
in Beat
experience.
Saber. She's already
Right.
dysregulated, and she's like,
Right.
ah, you know.
These things, yeah, it's just a lot. So I
Right.
love that.
which,
That's
which can be very useful for some people, but in that
yeah.
situation. So part of what I hear Adam saying is it's also the overarching treatment goal too, because you were looking it. I don't want to put words in your mouth, so correct me absolutely if I'm wrong, but it sounds like you were looking at this from a systemic point of view in terms of here's the family system.
Mhm.
Here's the client who's being brought in for X, Y, and Z, but you're also looking at, what's this overarching picture look like? And if there's some relief in this area, might that very well help not only the client, but the family and of course the mom. So like that, is that part of what you were thinking?
Right, because as we know, like play therapy is to help the child and meet those goals, but if the parent's unable to regulate, then how are they going to regulate the child when they get home? I'm only meeting with these children 45 55 minutes once a week. I need to then get the parent in a place where they can support their child all those other times. And for this family, the child still had her dysregulation at home, but we were doing fine in the playroom because we had created that environment. So I had to start focusing on how do I help the parent create a safe environment at home. And we worked on, you know, we tried a lot of different approaches, and this mom was just always stressed out and always dysregulated herself. So then unable to support her daughter. When the daughter became dysregulated, and this parent was, dare I say that traditional, old school traditional, like I'm not going to play in the sand. And I was like, well, how about we do some creative, playful things in here? I'm not going to do that. So I wanted to take her out of her element a bit, in a place that she didn't have an assumed reaction to it, right? Like, oh, I'm not going to play dolls. That's for kids. Well, let's try VR. Let's try something that you don't have a preconceived notion of. She was hesitant for sure, but then once we got in, she realized like this was worth it.
And she may have had a preconceived notion that she thought what it was,
Mm-hmm.
but if we all think back to the first time you put a headset on, you can intellectually imagine and think, oh, well, it's a thing and there's going to be a screen. But it's at least for me, I'll speak for myself, but I think it's true for a lot of people. It's a visceral response
Mm-hmm.
for most people when you put that on. And I think that's true for a lot of people because when I put a lot of people in the headset, one of the first things is, oh, ooh, or, some exclamation of, wow, that was different than what I had imagined this experience was going to be like. So there's
Mm-hmm.
it's another leap. It's, oh, I assume it's going to be blah blah blah. Yeah, okay, fine, I'll put this thing on or whatever. And then there's the reality of having done it. And I I wonder for her too if part of the power, considering at least what I'm imagining, obviously you're being careful in what you're sharing and anonymizing and all of that, but I suppose having been a mom through hectic things, I'm imagining a lot of the things she may have been feeling and experiencing in that prior to putting it on. And then you put her into something where she didn't have to do anything.
Correct.
She really could just be. She could listen, she could sit, she could touch if she wanted, but like if she hadn't moved a single muscle in the entire time she was in that setting, it still could have been very successful for her. So I think that's another thing too, because a lot of times we, as a field, not necessarily the people in this room here on this conversation, but like we tend to either here's something to think about, here's something to fill out, here are steps to do. And when you're already to the hilt, like to even hear it, process it, remember it, do it, implement it, think about it, like any of those things can just be too much.
Yeah. And
So to
that's
be able to just be.
right. And that's what I was noticing with her when we would talk. She's like, I love that idea. I totally want to try it. And then when we'd come back together that next week, I didn't have time to do it. And then she was starting to have her own shame and guilt. And that's like, that's not what I'm wanting. I don't want you to feel that at all. And using a lot of just being, hey, I'm a parent too. I totally get this. And that was one of the incentives or not buy-ins was, hey, when I did this, when I was training and playing around with this VR, I can't even explain how my body felt after this experience. And I want to share that with you. So yeah, as what you were saying, Dr. Stone, is she just got to be kid-free for, 30-ish minutes. And I think that also played a huge factor in it.
Absolutely.
As the clinician, when you're with whether it's your client or the parent, and you're in that space for 30 minutes, they're doing like, the beach, like they're relaxing on the beach. What are you doing? Are you talking to them? Do you offer like, are you able to share a little bit of your process? And
yeah, so for this case, I was just quiet. I gave minimal reflections and check-ins to make sure she was feeling safe and comfortable. But I was pretty quiet with this one. Others, I use a more guided meditation style, just, guiding them and getting them to just do a lot of their own reflection of what they're seeing, hearing, and feeling. I like to keep them verbalizing how they're grounding so they can repeat that in the real world.
That made me think of when you were at the retreat and I did that guided imagery experience, and then afterwards you asked me for it. Is that one of the places that you used it?
Yes.
That's great. Yeah. I'm sure that if we don't have, we can certainly seek out all kinds of those. But the minute you said that, and I don't know how to reference that when we're in this type of setting. So for people listening, that's not probably the most helpful example. But if you have a favorite guided imagery, if you write one yourself, if you seek one out, like that's a great place to use it, is when that person is in that kind of a setting in the headset.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Having used it, it was a brief intervention, about 15, 20 minutes. But after another adult and I had gone through some trauma work and wanting them before having them leave the session, I had them do that. And we did a lot of their positive affirmations, that as we were getting ready for the trauma work, they had these positive affirmations and strength-based affirmations. And then I just kept repeating that as they went to their safe place to kind of get ready to go back to their day.
Is it in a transition kind of way?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So the VR wasn't all session. We did a lot of talk based, but then as that transition closing part, we did a quick VR experience.
Right. So it sounds like you use it in multiple ways, really dependent on what the client needs.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I'm curious because I've dealt with this with clients who are interested in VR, but we may not get to use it because we can't get past the, I can't do VR, I get too sick, or it's been, it's met immediately with a negative thought because of previous experience with obviously different. Maybe they go to the mall and they put on the little headset and ride a
Mm-hmm.
roller coaster, and then they feel queasy because they had popcorn. It's the whole thing. How do you handle that, or have you had that experience where somebody comes in and they're interested, or you try to explain it and they're like, "Oh no, I can't do it. That's not I get too sick," right?
I've had it. I've had one adult say that, and we just talked about. I've talked about my experience that there's certain programs that I don't have any reaction to, and others that it was like 5-10 minutes into it, I was like, I got to get out of here. So we talk about that and talking about a safe way to, if we start to feel this way, how do we get out of the experience safely? They still weren't ready to do it, and we just went a different route.
And I love how you're presenting not only that, but all of these experiences, because it really is client specific.
Mm-hmm.
You're not pushing an agenda. You're not pushing, this is the way to go. You're really listening to them and like, hey, maybe we can try it. Oh, no, not ready. We're not going to continue. Like it's, and going all the way back to the beginning of this conversation, 20 minutes ago, the ethics of it as well. Like, the fact that you're even thinking about that right out of the gate.
Right. And that's why, the retreat that Dr. Stone was referring to, like prescriptive is just aligns with who I am, because it is all about the client. It is what's going to suit them best. And so with any of my technology, whether it's my Nintendo Switch or the VR, they typically the client is the first one to notice it and comment on it, and then I bring it to, and then after I've worked with a client, if I'm like, oh, I really think this is, then that's when I'll encourage it, but I'll never push, because they have to be comfortable with it too.
Absolutely, yeah. It's nope. I had a thought, left my head. ADHD for the win. This happens it happens once a session.
I am curious, Marie, some of the earlier part of the conversation, you were saying you used the word connect a number of times. So connecting with the client, and 100%, absolutely. But in our conversations, I believe that you're using it also in ways that have a lot more depth to it too, that you're understanding things about the client, that you're utilizing programs that will help the client either understand things about themselves or some other therapeutic goal. I could list a whole bunch, and it could be anything depending on the client. So I'm curious if you wouldn't mind like expanding out its connection, and then I'd love for it to be in your words and not the ones that I just use.
Say that to me again.
So there's the connection.
Mm-hmm.
There's the meeting the client where they are.
Mm-hmm.
There is the as we just walked through with that parent, understanding what her existence was like, what her needs might be, what her preferences were with the beach and all of that. All of that is very connecting. You hear me, you see me, I feel understood, I feel accepted, all those kinds of things. Fantastic. And then when a client is in the headset beyond that initial portion, are you learning things about them based on how they're interacting with the program, how they're even their body language, when they're in any certain environment, or how they might approach tasks? Like, are there things, if we think of parallels, particularly for you with what you understand about and have experienced for all your career in play therapy, like there are probably some parallels in the process of what you might learn from somebody if they were, say, playing with Legos, and what you might learn with somebody who's in the VR headset. And I'm curious what that is for you.
Yeah. Okay. And as you were talking, like the therapeutic powers of play, like just totally come to my mind. Yeah, because what I'll tell people all the time is, for some kids, They can do it in the sand. They can do it with the Legos, and for other kids, they do it in virtual reality. And so having, I've had one little guy that we've used virtual reality on, and it was so cool because prior to this, we did a lot of Fortnite. And we get really excited about playing and then totally shut down because we're not good enough. I don't know how to do that. We're not automatically winning. And so when we brought in the VR, same kind of mentality, right? Like, I'm going to do all this stuff. I've seen the videos on VR. I know how to do it. And even getting in and getting past like the introductory how to use that. And I'm still, I'm nervous because it's with a little, and I'm making sure I can see what they're doing and being able to verbalize, you got to do this, while trying to let him figure it out on his own. Right. And just help it. He started to really he had to slow down and take his breaths that we practiced with Fortnite. And so it was so cool to see how that transitioned, right? It was a new task for him, seeing what he has already learned with me and then applying it to this new stage. And then now including more gross motor and fine motor things, that was something that hadn't really piqued my purview yet until he started doing that. And then I started noticing more that sometimes we have struggles with getting our hands and to coordinate. And so that was something I brought up to Mom, and we were able to get him into some extra OT kind of things because there was some early childhood stuff that Mom was like, I didn't think it mattered. He got over it. So the VR was able to really help get me to see more of that body movement that I wasn't seeing previously.
Absolutely. The body movement. And I also, in your example, I was learning about perhaps, and I would want some more information. This is 2 instances, but it makes my brain go, okay, I want to look more into those 2 instances, which is this approach to tasks of enthusiasm, and I'm going to do all the things. And then when they can't do all the things, then shut down.
Mm-hmm.
And so my brain then extends that out to, I wonder how that shows up in school. Mm-hmm. I wonder how that shows up at home. I wonder how it shows up in, if they go to a new sport or, whatever the thing might be, that I imagine that is a frequent reaction and approach that this child has. Mm-hmm. And then what does that do to how they feel about themselves? Like all this enthusiasm and all this energy and everything. And then, the roller coaster goes way down into, I'm not, whatever the words might be, I'm not good enough, I'm not any of those kinds of things. And it's like, what is that doing to that person's self-concept? Mm-hmm. And how might that be balanced, moderated, understood, all kinds of things. And so between that and then learning that there might be some needs in the occupational therapy direction that maybe you would not have picked up on in doing some other activity. That's just 2 great examples of things that you can pick up on when you're, I think, not just when you're using VR, but I think it's when your available tools meet the needs of your clients. Mm-hmm. And having a variety of things available so that what those clients' needs are hopefully can be met through what you have.
Yeah.
So, Adam, did you think of the thing?
Well, no, I didn't think about that one, but I thought about something different. As a Marie, as a clinician, do you also do telehealth?
Not as much anymore. But for a while, I was one of very few in the area that would do telehealth with kiddos school age and up.
Mm-hmm. And when you would have those experiences, would you do VR?
No, I had not learned about VR when I was doing that.
I'm just curious from a clinician. Maybe Jessica, you can talk about this. What? Oh, my brain just turned off. What happens when clients are interested in this technology, but they don't live near you, but they're at home and they want to use it. Because I know I've seen, on, as my dad would say, on the Facebooks, people, ask about the ethical implications of it as far as like privacy. And when you're in your office, it's one thing, but if you're one person's on like a game or on the headset and they're not in your office, they're in another part of the state, how does that work? Do you send them a headset, or do they have to have their own, or like, is privacy wise there's
I mean, I guess there are multiple facets in there, and so I think in one way, like you're talking about the privacy, I would say that the privacy concerns that exist in telehealth already also exist in whatever program. Like the only additional piece is that now they're in a room with a headset on, so I think securing that they are in a space big enough to be able to do the thing, so they're not going to be like hurting themselves, and also that it's not in the middle of the living room where everybody is walking by and getting something from the refrigerator in the kitchen and that kind of thing. So like, but we would want to work through much of that in a telehealth setting anyway. Right. So I don't really think there are additional pieces. If we're talking about ethics in terms of like being in a public space in the headset, those concerns and the considerations that go into that would be the same whether they're in their own house or they're in your office, because you're still in a public space. So you still be addressing those things. As far as like the logistics go, I know that some people have lent out headsets. I have not done that, but I also know that I probably have a different population who come to me. I think a lot of my clients come to me because I work in this arena, so they tend to have quite a bit of technology already. So I understand that my population may be different at this point in my career than a lot of other people's practices. So my clients tend to have headsets, but I do know people who have lent them out. And as Marie was saying, like, then you got to be careful of the equipment and who's responsible for what and how that all works out. So you got to hammer that stuff out first. But I have found so much power, particularly in working virtually, when we are both in a headset, because now it feels like we're in the same physical space. And so we go into a common area, like there's a game, Township Tales. So it's just the two of you, or whoever. You have the code, you invite each other in, no one else can get into that space. I still use my telehealth as how we hear each other, and if we wanted to, to see each other and communicate through the Zoom is what I use, the Facebook, the Zoom, and and all of that. But we're in the same space, walking through and doing the things together. And so it brings another element into the telehealth. But yeah, there are considerations all along the way to answer your question. And I'm sorry, Marie, I didn't really want to like take the time when this is focused on you, but I also wanted, in case that question came up for somebody, I wanted it to be at least have an answer.
Yeah, I mean, doing the same thing, like even friending, right? If I have not had the luxury yet to, do headset to headset yet, but on the other end of like friending in games, right? So just making sure that you're being safe with, you friend them during the session, but as soon as the session's over, unfriending them, so there's not that connection there, so you still keep that level of confidentiality.
Right. And logistically building time in to do that. And also, what is your experience? I know for me, I feel really strongly about this, but what's your experience of the conversation with the client to inform them that you're going to be doing that?
It's always tricky because, right, their level of like, what's friending mean? And like, oh, like, so if I see you on tonight, I can play with you. Oh, well, at the end of the session, just to keep our privacy, I'm going to unfriend you, and just continuing to educate them on that confidentiality. Well, I don't care if my friends, I hear that. And it's still a part of my job to make sure I keep your privacy.
Absolutely. And it hasn't happened to me, thankfully, thankfully, like I did come to me ahead of time. I didn't learn it from experience, but hearing our clients talk about, oh, so and so blocked me or they unfriended me, not us, but like somebody else in their life, and the like, who, you just stabbed me in the heart. How could you do that, kind of a thing? Even you didn't follow through with our Snapchat streak. Like any of those kinds of things have really big social meaning.
Mm-hmm.
Clients and those of us who are older, like myself, may not naturally see the impact that has. And so what are your thoughts on that? Like if you hadn't had that conversation, if you hadn't said, okay, just so you know, I'm going to unfriend you, and like all the things you just said,
Mm-hmm.
what can you imagine is going to be a client's response when they log on and you're not there?
So it happened, even though I warned them in the beginning, the early school age, and it was Roblox, and they came back and they were kind of reserved with me, and I was checking in, and we got back onto Roblox, and then it came out like, why did you unfriend me? And I had to repair. I couldn't just be like, well, I told you. Right. I had to go back and I had to repair that relationship because it really hurt their feelings that I had just done that.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's an interesting dilemma that I never thought about that, because Jessica, I'm a lot like you. Like, it's like, oh, I read my text message, but I know I can't get to it in the morning, so I'm going to leave you on read because otherwise I'll forget or something, and then that turns into a thing. Maybe a conversation to have with developers at some point is like, if more and more of this technology is being used, is there a way you can hide yourself rather than unfriend, so that you can just toggle back and forth rather than having to go through that? So like next time we see each other in the office or online in a session, we'll pop up for each other, but in between, for ethical reasons, it won't. So I'm wondering if there's, it feels like it would be worthwhile conversation to have, but
yeah, hiding the connection, because you can hide yourself, you can show yourself as not being online, but people can still see your friends list and a lot of things. So like yeah, being able to toggle whether or not anyone else can see. Some things you can toggle whether or not someone can see your friends list at all.
Right.
But I don't believe, I don't know how confidently I can say that, but I don't believe you can do that in the headset itself. Like, if let me rephrase that. If you're using the Quest, of course, if someone's using a different headset, but the lowest common denominator for most people at this point is that they're using the Quest.
Well, and that's why conversations like this are so important with clinicians like Marie, who, you bring these ideas up, and if people are developing material but they're not talking to clinicians and they're not talking to clients, getting the experiential side of it, then things will get missed, and we have to find those workarounds, which sometimes work, but then ethically we're going to be like, navigate that that weird pond of,
well, and to have something built in.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
We're all human. Like, you had to rush out because your kid's school called, and you get to rush out of the office, and you didn't get a chance to unfriend before, then now we have a concern. So to have it be automatic would be just fantastic. And I agree with you that developers having those conversations with clinicians is really important. So that brings me to a question, Marie. If you were able to, with all this experience you have, and it doesn't have to be specific to VR, if it is, that's fantastic. But I think there are probably bridges we can build even if it isn't. If you could have a sit down with some developers, what are the clinical concerns that you think would be so great if they could change the interface?
Well, that's a good question.
And one you already brought up,
and
with
we're
the friends.
those developers right now. I'm just kidding.
Yeah. Like Roblox comes to mind when you say that. Like, I do really appreciate Roblox. they try really hard to make sure those kids are safe by making, you have to, I'm 13 and above. It would be, how neat would it be to be like, I am a therapist. So, and then have some of those presets, like, right, that we're going into more private servers, or the chats aren't going to be available when we're connected like that. Because, right, I used to block the chats, but then the kids don't block the chat. So they're referencing something in the chat, and now I have to go in to moderate it. And now it's a part of my therapy session that people are being called names and things like that. So yeah, like almost that, like, hey, I'm this special individual, and it creates all those presets.
Well, and they have programs for educators,
Mm-hmm.
and Minecraft does as well. And so, like, I feel like there are enough parallels in that role, different for
Mm-hmm.
sure.
Mm-hmm.
What we're doing is different, but still some of those concerns exist in both of those categories of being an educator and being a therapist, in terms of like not wanting to have those components available. So I think that's a fantastic idea, that there can be a category of user that then doesn't have those things built in, or has a way to actually shut it down, so that when you're in that space with a client, or in the teacher with a student, that it's not even a consideration. You can just turn those things off, and it works for whoever is in that space at that time.
Yeah, because like you said, it's I had that happen. I got off late with a kiddo, and then jumped right into another session. Didn't have time, and then previous kiddo tries to join the thing, and it's clinicians. We're busy. I try to see as many people as I can, and so I only have a 5-10 minute break, and then I have to be mindful of, okay, the next one, we do Fortnite, so I need to make sure all those things are set up the right way. VR, right? I have to make sure I have my tablet ready so I can see what they're doing. There's just not always enough time. So if if they offered like trainings or specialized videos, like, hey, you're a teacher, you're a therapist, here's how you get this stuff done quicker.
Mm-hmm. So, mental note for us, Adam, is I think we need to tag a couple of companies in this video, so that they can really, hopefully, really listen and incorporate that in, because I think from a programming stance, it really shouldn't be. You're not making a whole new program. Right. You're just limiting what's being accessed in that time. So,
well, we know other programs have, there's this new ad for WhatsApp that's running around now, where it talks about the security features of it, where it shows you from inside the app. But so if you're talking, I'm sorry,
that was so cool. I zoomed in right as you were like talking about it.
It does it through hand motions, and I haven't taken the time to learn the hand motions. But they, like, even if you're doing a voice chat with somebody, it shows you from inside the app, but it's all garbled and coded. So it's showing you so even
it's
WhatsApp
encrypted.
Can't listen to your conversations, and so we know that technology exists to protect things, and this would just be more compartmentalizing.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm sure it's possible. Cost, I have no idea what it would cost. So
I know that I totally put you on the spot there, Marie, but look what you came up with. That's
right.
really powerful. That's a person who has experience doing the work, because you are able to think through, where has been a place that's kind of been a pain point in this environment. And I think it does extend into immersive technologies really beautifully, because we could definitely, that's one of the conversations we often have about any of this work is what are the programs where I can be, like I was saying in Township Tale, where can I be in the environment with my client, where other people aren't going to be coming in, that we still have the concerns, like you're on the headset. It is Meta, like there is a bigger company that's involved, and really where are the limitations of that confidentiality, which is a big reason why your communication should be through your HIPAA compliant, if you're in the US, HIPAA compliant platform and all those kinds of things. So that all that still exists. I just want to acknowledge that it's there, but the ability to be in a space that checks off a number of those boxes that are important to us as clinicians is really important. And I also want to go back to what I said earlier. I'm not trying to say, if any of the developers are listening, I'm not trying to say your job is easy. My husband's a developer. I see it. I see the frustration and the working through and how long it takes. Like, yes, got it. So I wasn't trying to say that it was simple, but what I was trying to say is that I think it's possible. Sure. And I think it's a whole other use of and important component of the work that is being done to include those aspects in there.
And something you had said, Dr. Stone, to tie us back to the beginning is, there are times where for a client having a private area and then moving to a public area, right, based on that goal. In the beginning, I want them to just be comfortable and getting used to it and start, exploring in a safe place. What can I do? What can I do? What are my limitations? Can I be chaotic? And then as the clinician, I'm thinking like, okay, I'm working on them being, more self-regulated, more self-directed, more self-actualized. And are they ready for me to say, hey, let's try this in a public setting while still keeping safety a high priority?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And seeing, are they transferring and generalizing the things that you've been working on into this space? How is it they actually interact with others? Because it could be different with us, right, than it is, like you were saying earlier with that case example that you gave of you had set up the environment with that client, that the two of you had a certain flow to how you interacted and all those kinds of things, but that wasn't happening at home or with mom. So like, how do we know that when they're outside of our environment, they're utilizing these either skills or experiences or insights or whatever it is that we're working on? And one of the ways we do that is to go into those public spaces with them, with all the conversation and, again, back to verbal and written informed consent that goes along with that. But that's an explanation with the caregivers of why you're going into that public space with that client and why it's important. And go back to the thing I say ad nauseum, which is know what you're doing and why you're doing it.
Mm-hmm.
And then you'll be able to tell other people too. Yeah.
I think that's that last thing you just said, Jessica, Marie, you're doing that because I know I highlighted this before, but like with the parent who you put in the beach, something we didn't really talk about that I love about that is you also showed her or we did talk about this, but we glossed over it. You showed her it doesn't take much to relax, right? You don't actually have to drive to the beach. You can set this up and in 5 minutes, like you watched her, her whole body just relax. I don't know that would have been maybe as powerful or maybe even have been doable if you didn't know what was capable, if you hadn't done your research. And
oh my gosh, yeah, that intensive training I took with Dr. Stone, like it just opened the door to week by week we tried new programs and new apps and like walked through it and talked about the benefits. And then, as a clinician, we have to we got to test it before we put it out there, right? And so just downloading new apps and doing the research, and then that way you can then apply it to the client and their needs, and then and ultimately those treatment goals.
Mm-hmm. Circling back to your prescriptive approach.
Mm-hmm.
What's the client need? What's available? What are the approaches? And how do you bring all of that together and the research to be really powerful and customized? I mean, you're really customizing your approach to what that client or the family or whoever the people are in front of you, what they need. And I think your clients are really lucky to have you.
Thank you. I enjoy my clients. I always look forward to what new adventure we're going on today.
Absolutely.
So as we come to the end here, I'm curious if you could say one thing to clinicians wanting to get into this, from based on your experience, what would you say to them? What would be your message to clinicians who are on the fence, thinking about this technology?
Ooh,
No pressure.
I know there's so much. Nike, just do it. Jump in, try it. Take the trainings. Go. I know sometimes libraries have them. Sometimes I'll talk to parents about go to the library and rent it and try it. Because you don't know what you don't like until you try it. And then, like for me, I still have my reservation, especially with the littles. I'm like, as we were talking today, I'm thinking like, there's a client I think I'm gonna offer it because we do so much in Minecraft and there's so much destruction and chaos. And I just wonder if he was able to act some of that out in a more real life kind of setting, VR, how he can even grow. Because I see progress, but I want to see what that immersive technology would do for him. So do it. Jump on and try it.
All right,
and
everyone, you heard it here first. Just
yep.
go do it.
Do it. And she also combined in there training and research and using it yourself. Like really, it's a cool thing. You put it on a headset and it's a cool thing, and it's very powerful. So like, again, back to know what you're doing and why you're doing it, and you can do some really amazing things for your clients. Thank you so much for coming and talking with us and sharing with everybody your experience as a clinician who is using this in your office, and you've seen some really powerful things happening.
Yes. And thank you for having me, and thank you for taking time to get it from the clinician's point of view. Sometimes, we get so busy. I would love to do research. I would love to do all this, but we get so busy because we are working with these clients. We are applying what we're learning from you all. So thank you for doing what you do.
So you'll put all that good stuff in there and people can get a hold of you.
Yep.
Maybe learn more about the trainings that your organization provides. What's the name of it? Just so that people...
Yeah. So we are called the Playhouse Collaborative. We are a small woman-owned business here in the St. Louis area. We do our best to support individuals who are working towards their RPT credentials. Registered play therapist. And we focus on like Adlerian play therapy, child-centered play therapy, prescriptive. I do a lot of digital play based off of your work. Danielle White is the co-owner. She works through an attachment lens as well. And then we're slowly bringing on some other cool individuals like Tyler Tooley, who does neurodiversity and technology, Elizabeth Ernst, who does anxiety and CBT work. So we are expanding, and our goal is to help other clinicians. We want to share knowledge. It's not a competition out here. We just want everybody to learn and be the best therapists they can be.
That's fantastic.
I love it. Therapists supporting therapists.
Yes.
Okay.
Right.
Well, thanks for joining us, and I'll let Adam close us up.
Yes, thank you, Marie, for joining. It was a pleasure talking to you, learning about your practice, and to everyone at home, thank you for watching and listening and joining us for another episode of MHVR Bites. Great. We'll see you soon. This episode was brought to you by MHVR in partnership with the American Medical Extended Reality Association.